What will you do if you find yourself in an unusual situation, when absolutely everything depends on your decision? Strategy is what I need and absolutely everyone needs. It is always important to have a plan in order to know your next step. From my vantage point, sitting high atop a hotel bar stool, I could see 3 potential paths for the evening. I could step outside and hail a cab, which would take me back to my gloomy home, a condo filled with memories and broken promises. It was a place that bore all of the marks of a woman's touch. From the new furniture and wall hangings to the freshly redecorated interior, the house oozed high-class style. In short, it reeked of Candace Whitmore. The thought of that option made me shudder. Another possibility was to head back up to the private hotel suites where the unofficial reception was taking place. I had already survived the annual Ajax Corporation Christmas party banquet. I had shaken the right hands, kissed the right asses, and made the kind of impression expected of the company's newest and youngest director. Most of the older executives and their spouses had already left, leaving the millennials to carry on the celebration. A few of Ajax's clients had organized an unofficial party in some of the business suites, and those gatherings were more than a little excessive. I wondered if Ajax's management knew just how much celebrating was happening upstairs. Actually, I was sure they did. They made sure to shield themselves from whatever went on at those parties. I shook my head, deciding against the wild chaos brewing up there. This left me with a third option: to sit here in the hotel bar with a glass of strong alcohol and occupy this bar stool, at least until I inevitably fall off it. I figured that when that happened, they'd send a bellhop to wheel my drunk self up to my room and dump me inside. Can't have guests sprawled out in the open, right? I chuckled to myself. I was settling into that plan when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Sven? What are you doing down here, man?" I recognized the voice instantly. Only one person calls me Sven. It was my best friend of 4 years and colleague, David Nasser. I turned around and looked into the darkest brown eyes I'd ever seen, almost black, like a shark's. It suited him, considering he was an account manager in the sales department. I once joked that his eyes must roll back when he's making a sales call. He laughed and said, "Only when I'm closing the deal." I tended to believe him. With his olive skin, Middle Eastern features, and natural good looks, those eyes only added to his charm. At least, that's what the ladies in the office tell me. Dave is almost a full inch taller than me, a fact he loves to remind me of, but he has a very slender build. With wavy black hair, always perfectly groomed and clean-shaven, and dressed in the most fashionable European styles, he presents a polished persona to the world. But I know the real Dave. He's a shameless womanizer, plain and simple. "Sven, you still with us?" His laughter snapped me out of my thoughts. I suppose I should introduce myself. I'm Brandon Svensson, Director of Marketing for Ajax Corporation. We specialize in custom shipping and mailing containers worldwide. If it doesn't fit in a standard FedEx box, chances are it's shipped in one of ours. We cater to a broad range of industries, from electronics to distilleries to adult toys. Yeah, quite a variety, right? Oh, and why Sven? Besides my last name, my father was Swedish and my mother French, so I've got the sturdy build of a Viking with the curly brown hair and facial features of a Frenchman. Not too bad of a mix. I could have done worse. Plus, I prefer Dave calling me Sven over his other favorite nickname, D'Artagnan, thanks to my mustache and goatee. "Dude, what are you doing down here?" he asked, pulling up a seat next to me at the bar. I lifted my glass of rye whiskey and looked at him. "Isn't that a rhetorical question?" He flashed his usual wide grin. I realized I've never met anyone who smiles as much as my best friend. He even smiles when he's being a jerk. "Dude, you need to find a way to move on." "I'm working on it," I lied. Bullshit, he laughed. Sitting here slowly getting drunk isn't moving on. I'm reevaluating my options, I said with a sad smile. Oh man. You're not going over to the dark side, are you? I should have sold you my sister's old Prius. You're falling for me, aren't you? I burst out laughing, only to accidentally inhale some alcohol, which sent a burning sensation up my nose and tears to my eyes. My friend just laughed harder. In your dreams, I finally managed to say. Nah, he replied with that damn permanent grin. I keep telling you, man, you're not my type. You've got a little something extra that just doesn't do it for me. Jerk, I shot back. Nope, pretty sure you've got one of those too, even though you're full of crap most of the time. I was referring to the other side of the coin, so what's got you down here, bro? Planning my next move. Oh, please, Dave groaned. Like when you canceled your own party last week? Who cancels their own 30th birthday bash? I know you're still grieving, but seriously, man, you've got to find a way to move forward. I just stared at the amber liquid in my glass. You know that bridge is burned, right? I mean, Candace would probably take you back in a heartbeat, but do you really want to go through the hell of trying to rebuild trust and love with someone like that? I kept my eyes on my drink, silently acknowledging that we both knew the answer. When the love of your life betrays you, it's like the rose-colored glasses shatter. All the flaws you once overlooked become painfully obvious. Yes, I'd put Candace on a pedestal. I think everyone does that in the beginning of a relationship, even though we know they can't stay up there forever. But it's a harsh reality when your partner not only falls off that pedestal, but then uses it to beat the crap out of you, leaving you with nothing but a shattered heart and bleeding memories. Besides, Dave laughed, pulling me out of my deep thoughts, I'm pretty sure her family wouldn't be thrilled to see you two together again. And whose fault is that? My best friend flashed a mischievous grin. Well, I'm pretty sure I won't be getting a Christmas card from them this year, either. You think? I chuckled. He was quiet for a moment before responding, his tone calm but serious. You know I've already apologized for that. Brandon, I was just... Dave, I interrupted. It's fine. And I don't blame you for anything. I know you were just looking out for me. Exactly, he said, grinning again. And that's what I'm doing now, too. We need to go upstairs and unwind. Missing your birthday is one thing, but missing Melanie in accounting, showing off her charms, is quite another. We both burst out laughing. Seeing Melanie flash, everyone was always something to behold, and it had become a holiday tradition. You know, Sarah might be persuaded to give you a birthday lap dance. In your dreams, I scoffed. Only in your twisted dreams. Yeah, Dave replied with a mischievous grin, clearly lost in the fantasy. Why don't you just ask her out, you creep? I chuckled. You fantasize about her all the time. Are you afraid she'll reject you? Dude, I'm in sales. I'm used to rejection. No, what scares me more is if she actually says yes. I looked at him, totally puzzled. She'd probably hurt me, he laughed, and in ways I've only imagined. She's more likely to sacrifice you on some black altar to a dark god. Well, he smirked, there's that too. We both started laughing. Hey man, do what you gotta do, Dave said as he stood up. But if you decide to rejoin the living and head upstairs, I promise you won't forget it. All right, I'll think about it. Try thinking about it before you finish that drink, he added, gesturing at my glass. We don't want you seeing double. He gave me a knowing grin. It was clear I wasn't following his twisted logic. The sight of Melanie's gigantic assets can traumatize anyone. Brandon, he joked as he began to walk away, I'll save you a seat up there, and dude, quit checking out my butt. His laughter echoed as he left the bar. I found myself laughing along with him. He could be annoying at times, but he was a good friend, I don't know how I would have gotten through the past few months without his support and sarcastic remarks. There's no doubt the last 3.5 months have been the darkest period of my life. I met Candace 3 years ago. At the time, I had been with Ajax for a year, and she had just passed the bar exam and started working at a local law firm. Standing at 6'2" with a beautiful face, long golden hair, and a willowy athletic build, she effortlessly stood out in any crowd. She had even played collegiate volleyball before attending law school. From the moment she looked at me with her sea-green eyes and flashed that smile, I was captivated. Beyond her stunning appearance, Candace Whitmore had a way of commanding any room she entered. She was charming, yet assertive, funny, yet determined, incredibly intimacy, yet highly intelligent. And behind closed doors, she was insatiable. Our intimacy life was like an intense workout, often leaving me feeling as though I had just survived a CrossFit session. Not that I was complaining. I might have been sore and bruised, but I never complained. We dated for a couple of years before I proposed to her. I would have asked sooner, but, to be honest, her family intimidated the hell out of me. No matter what anyone says, when you marry your spouse, you also inherit their family dynamics. If your spouse has strained relationships with their family, that's what you'll start with. If they have a close-knit family, prepare for them to be a part of your daily life. Candace's family was very tightly knit. To make matters more challenging, it was a family full of lawyers. In addition to Candace, her family also included her father, older brother, and sister-in-law, all of whom were lawyers. The Whitmores were well-known and highly respected in South Florida. Candace's father, Conrad, struck me as somewhat arrogant, which may have been due to the typical parental opinion that no one is right for their daughter. Since he was a well-known lawyer, his behavior seemed to be part of his professional reputation as well. Candace's mother, Rachel, was incredibly kind, and the only family member who welcomed me warmly. Unlike the rest of the Whitmores, Rachel was not a lawyer. She was a tall, beautiful woman, only slightly shorter than Candace, and seemed to be the link that held their family together. Candace's older brother, Brad, was a rather unpleasant man. While Conrad had an aristocratic and arrogant personality, Brad was just an indulgent jerk. As a corporate lawyer, he was lucky enough to work at his father's firm, since his colleagues at any other firm would most likely have had problems with him by now. Meredith, Brad's wife, completed the list of Whitmore and Associates employees. As a real estate lawyer, she fit in well with the family. To describe Meredith is simple. Imagine a 7-foot-tall, red-haired Amazon with a commanding appearance. Now reduce this image to a 5-foot bundle of energy, add to it a high IQ and a barracuda character, and you get Meredith Whitmore. There is no doubt that she could take a worthy place in the family. Even with a family that could have starred on reality TV, I couldn't imagine my life without Candace, so I proposed. When she said yes, it marked the start of the most unforgettable summer of my life. We got engaged in May, and thanks to Meredith, we had moved into our condo by July. That same month, I received a promotion and felt on top of the world. However, by September, my life took a dramatic turn for the worse. When I accepted the promotion, I knew I'd need to work extra hours initially, but I didn't anticipate just how demanding it would be. I was aware that it troubled Candace, but there wasn't much I could do about it in those early months. The tension between us intensified when all our dreams seemed to crumble like wax too close to a flame over Labor Day weekend. Candace's family was hosting a big party that Sunday evening, and Conrad had something planned that required the entire family's presence. Unfortunately, the Friday before the holiday we experienced a major issue with a print advertisement. I had been working so quickly that I missed something on the blue line. Thankfully, the printer caught it, but I needed to go to the printers on Saturday to find a solution. Due to the holiday, changing our flights to and from Miami was impossible. Candace was furious and decided she would fly out Friday, with or without me. I apologized, but also reminded her of the many times her job had caused us to miss dates and events over the past couple of years. We had missed several occasions due to her late nights at work on cases for her firm. Unfortunately, we had the worst argument of our relationship the night she left. The next day, I managed to work with our printer and find a viable solution, which seemed to save my professional reputation. With a bit of luck, it looked like my personal plans might also be salvaged. I might still make it to the Whitmore party. I caught a red-eye flight to Orlando, the nearest I could get. As the sun rose over Florida, I stood at baggage claim, hoping my suitcase would join me for the weekend and not leave me temporarily nud saint. The odds were still in my favor, though there was still a chance my luggage could end up in New York or Cuba. My suitcase did eventually arrive, but it was on the next flight, 2 hours later. It felt like fate was playing a trick on me. Had my suitcase arrived on time, or if I had opted to come back for it later, things might have turned out differently. 2 hours after my arrival, I was on the road in a rental car, heading for Coconut Grove, just north of Miami. The Whitmores lived in a private gated community with its own slice of beach. Upon arrival, I was greeted by Rachel with a warm hug, Conrad with a firm handshake, and a cold reception from Brad. "About time you got here," he said with a sneer. "She's been tearing everyone apart." Rachel confirmed that Candace had been on a rampage. They had sent her to the beach with Meredith to sunbathe, drink Cosmos, and relax, hoping she'd be in a better mood for the evening's party. Rachel told me to fetch them for lunch. I laughed and said I'd be the sacrificial lamb. Maybe my arrival would help, or so I hoped. I knew I'd be doing a lot of apologizing, but since it was a big night for her family, I was willing to take one for the team. It was a short walk to the small est-ip of sand that served as a beach. Though it was mostly covered in patches of grass, it was nice to have private access to the ocean. The community was primarily affluent retirees, who rarely used the beach, but there were several grassy dunes that provided an extra level of privacy if needed. When I didn't see them at first among the half-dozen or so other people, I suspected they were hiding behind one of the dunes. I smiled to myself as I walked to a particularly secluded spot and took out my cell phone. If Candace and Meredith had been there, they would probably have been sunbathing top-ass. I chuckled to myself, imagining two beautiful women trying to cover up. A mischievous smile spread across my face, and my heart began to pound wildly. As I approached the dune, I heard voices. In fact, I heard whispers coming from someone caught up in passion. My heart was pounding so hard that I thought it was about to burst out of my chest. I hoped it wasn't Candace, but images of her and Meredith picking up a couple of guys popped into my mind. Although I didn't really care that Meredith was cheating on Brad, to be honest, I didn't like either of them. The thought of Candace doing this to me hurt my heart. It's time to decide whether to fight or run. I knew I had to see it for myself. Taking a deep breath, I carefully walked around the dune. If it had been just one person, I would have come face to face with him. If there were two or more of them, I would have gathered the evidence and left. Using my cell phone to record videos, I was moving towards what I feared could be the end of my relationship with Candace. When I got to the scene of the accident, I realized that I was partly right and partly wrong. I was right that what I saw would change my relationship, but I was wrong about many other things. My fiancé cheated on me with Meredith. Damn it! "Oh shit, that was incredible," Meredith whispered. "Baby, no one does it like you do." Then, the woman I had planned to spend my life with, the love of my life, looked deeply into her sister-in-law's eyes and giggled like a child. Honestly, I was stunned that they didn't notice me. Despite being lost in their own passion, I would have thought they would have heard my heart breaking. I certainly did. Somehow, I managed to catch my breath and slowly retreated from the impending nightmare. I'm not sure how I made it back to the house, but Suddenly I found myself face to face with my future mother-in-law, concern etched on her face. "Brandon, honey, what's wrong?" she asked, pulling me out of my daze. "Where are the girls?" "On the beach," I rasped, feeling my emotions start to overflow. "They'll be up soon." Rachel looked into my eyes, which were beginning to well with tears. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "I need to go." "Make sure you're back in time to get ready for the party, son." Conrad's voice came from behind me. I turned to face him and saw his expression change from stern and concerned to confused and worried. "I think that would be a very bad idea, sir. You need your family there tonight. Please tell Candace I'll speak with her later. I'm sorry I have to leave." I rushed out of their house before they could bombard me with questions. I managed to drive for an hour toward Orlando before my phone began to buzz. I'd already found that I couldn't get a flight home from Orlando, but had secured one from Tampa. It would take a few more hours, but it would still get me home. After the third call, I decided to pick up the phone. "Hello?" I answered coldly. "Brandon?" Candace answered calmly. "Honey, where are you?" "I'm on my way home." Her voice trembled slightly. "But why?" "Dad needs everyone here tonight." "Candace, after what I saw, there's no way I'm coming to your family meeting." "Brandon, I don't understand. I'm not sure what you think about what you saw or heard, but—" "Candace, stop it!" I cut her off. To her credit, she adhered to the first rule of dealing with consequences: deny, deny, and deny again. "Brandon, we need to sit down and talk about what you think you saw or heard." "Well, Candace, did I see my ex-fiancé cheating on me?" There was a sharp sigh on the other end of the line. "Please, Brandon," she said softly, her voice breaking. "Please talk to me before you do anything." "Wow, I could ask you the same thing, couldn't I?" I retorted. "Please, Candace," I mimicked. "I love you so much. Please talk to me before you do anything stupid." She could only respond with a strangled sob. "It looks like neither of us gets what we want, doesn't it?" I growled. "Go back to your family, Candace. Start thinking about how you can do this so that you don't lose more than you already have." "No, it's not what you think," she begged. "It's simple." I hung up before she could come up with any more excuses. As I was driving, my cell phone kept buzzing until I eventually turned it off. When I arrived in Tampa, I turned my phone back on and saw that I had missed 19 calls, 11 from Candace, 4 from Meredith, 1 from Rachel, and 3 from Conrad. While I was looking at my phone, it buzzed again. Without thinking, I answered. "Brandon?" snapped Candace's father, clearly frustrated. "Yes, sir," I responded calmly. "What on earth happened?" "Candace has been locked in her old bedroom, crying her eyes out. She hasn't done that since high school." "What did you say to her?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but I told her that the marriage is off." "Off?" he exclaimed. "Why?" "I'm sorry, sir, but you'll need to hear that from Candace." Conrad was silent for a moment before shifting from fatherly concern to lawyer mode. "Now, son, don't go doing something we'll all regret. I'm sure we can sit down and work this out." "I doubt that, sir. Your daughter has already done something very foolish. Look, Mr. Whitmore, I need to catch my flight, so I have to hang up." "Flight? What flight?" "I'm flying back home tonight." "Tonight?" he yelled. "What on earth happened down there?" "I'm sorry, sir, but even if I told you, you probably wouldn't believe me without proof. Please let Candace know we'll handle everything when she returns. Mr. Whitmore, I really hope tonight goes better for your family than this afternoon did. Goodbye, sir." While waiting for my flight, I went through the voicemail messages. Candace had tried every approach to get me to call her back, questioning, demanding, reasoning, and finally pleading and crying. When I got to our condo, I felt a strong urge to get drunk. Concerned about my judgment, I called Dave. He came over, picked me up, and kept an eye on me as I drank myself into a stupor. I recounted everything that had happened, probably several times throughout the evening, interspersed with, "I love you, man," and "You're my best friend" declarations. Yes, I'm a sentimental drunk. I also remember showing him the video multiple times. The following morning, though it was more like the afternoon, I woke up and started to prepare for a future without Candace. There was just one big issue. I couldn't imagine a life without her. This kicked off a 3-month descent into depression, which was only worsened by the constant visits and calls from the Whitmore family. The first visit was from Candace herself. She returned home on Monday night to find the condo empty, as I had temporarily moved in with Dave. When she called and discovered the place was vacant, it was clear she was more than a little upset. I agreed to go over to the condo and meet her the following evening. When I arrived, she had gone all out. Dinner, wine, candlelight, and even wore an intimacy dress. She looked stunning. However, my response quickly extinguished any hopes she had of winning me back through seduction. "Candace, you didn't have to do all this," I said as I walked into the condo and saw the elaborate setup. "Baby, I needed to start showing you how sorry I am. No, Candace," I interrupted. "What I meant was, you didn't have to because it's not going to change anything. We're done. End of story." "That's nonsense, Brandon, and you know it. Yes, I was angry and made a huge mistake, but I love you, and you love me, so we're going to find a way to work through this." Still insisting it was a one-time thing? She glanced away momentarily. "Speaking of nonsense, we both know that's not the case. Right, baby girl?" She paled before quickly shifting back to her defensive stance. "Brandon, I'm not entirely sure what you think you saw, but it wasn't what you believe it to be." "Really?" I taunted. "Would you like to see the video I recorded?" Her body froze like a deer caught in headlights, and she gasped, stumbling to a chair. "Oh God, Brandon, no." "Oh yes, it's not very long, but it's quite revealing." Candace sat down, shaking her head. "Please, Brandon," she sobbed, unable to look at me. "Please." Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched the woman I once loved writhing in her own downfall. "No," I said quietly. "We're finished. We weren't even engaged for more than 4 months, and you're already cheating on me. The fact that it was with another woman, and that woman was your sister-in-law, is something I can't even begin to wrap my head around. I'll leave it to you to decide what to do about the condo. Thanks to Meredith, damn, that's ironic. Thanks to Meredith, our relationship is over, but she did manage to get us an incredible deal on this condo. The arrangement she set up makes it cheaper to live here than to rent an apartment half the size. Since neither of us has much invested in it, it will be straightforward for one of us to buy out the other." "I don't want this to be over," she said softly. "I'm sorry, Brandon, it was just a mistake." "No," I replied coldly. "I don't buy that. A mistake would be a one-time, unplanned incident. I don't think you planned it, but it certainly didn't take you long to act on it once the opportunity arose. I believe you saw your chance and took it, and I certainly don't believe it was a one-time occurrence." Candace sat there, sobbing and staring at the floor. "Just let me know what you decide about the condo," I said, turning to leave. "Brandon, please don't do this to us," she said, wiping her tears. "I love you." I glanced back at her, my resolve wavering as tears began to form. I knew I needed to leave quickly. "I seriously doubt that, Candace," I choked out. "You did this to us, and if that's your idea of love, I certainly don't want it." I left swiftly, closing the door as she called out my name. It was unsettling stepping into my future without her. I had always envisioned growing old with her, sharing both the highs and the lows, but now I was alone. A few days later, I moved back into the condo since Candace had moved out. She had left me a message saying she was going home until we worked things out. I wasn't sure what her next move would be. It didn't take long for me to find out. A few days later, I received a revealing phone call. "What's all this nonsense I'm hearing about you threatening to release a video?" Conrad Whitmore roared. "I'll be damned if I let some little brat try to tarnish my family's reputation." "Mr. Whitmore? I'll have the police on you before— Bah!" "Mr. Whitmore." He paused to catch his breath, and I seized the moment. "Mr. Whitmore," I said calmly, "I never threatened to release anything. I have no intention of embarrassing Candace, Meredith, or your family." "Meredith? Why would it embarrass my daughter-in-law?" I thought to myself, of course, always the lawyer. "Sir, what did Candace and Meredith tell you I saw?" "You didn't see anything," he began, then collected himself. "They mentioned you might have overheard Candace talking about one of her ex-boyfriends. Candace said she had admitted to having intimacy with him 6 months ago while you two were dating. She claimed she had been quite detailed about the encounter and that it would be very embarrassing for everyone involved if that information came out. They were convinced you overheard their conversation and got upset, which is why you called off the wedding." "No, sir," I sighed. "That's an imaginative story, but it's not what I saw." I sighed again, wondering if I really wanted to delve into this question. Unfortunately, Candace left me with few options. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore, but that day on the beach, I witnessed my ex-fiancé cheating on me." There was an uneasy silence in the receiver. For a moment, I wondered if he was still on the line. He was. "That's a lie!" he shouted. "This is absolute nonsense, and if you have heard this lie from anyone, I will sue you for defamation. I'm going to make your life a nightmare." I disconnected, thinking he wouldn't believe me without evidence, but I had hoped he would confront Candace or Meredith before coming after me. I suppose the best defense is a strong offense. It didn't take long for the Whitmores to strike back. A few days later, I was summoned to Ajax Corp's legal office, where I was informed about a pending slander lawsuit involving me. Their questioning suggested that I had been discussing the situation with other Ajax employees, particularly Dave. I provided a brief, vague summary of the situation, explaining that the breakup was due to a potentially embarrassing issue and that this lawsuit was an attempt to protect the family's reputation. They agreed, but advised me to consult an attorney anyway. My attorney informed me of 2 additional legal actions being pursued against me. First, there was a preemptive move to suppress any photos or videos involving the Whitmore family. Additionally, the financial arrangement concerning our condo was now under scrutiny. When he asked about the video, I provided it to him and mentioned that I had no copies. He explained that the case would likely never go to trial, because if it did, the video would become public to disprove slander, which the Whitmores were desperate to avoid. My lawyer was straightforward, telling me that, while the case might not go to trial, I could still face legal harassment. He warned that they could drag this out for a long time, leading to escalating legal costs. There was a possibility, though not a high one, that I might need to renegotiate the condo financing, which could be expensive. It was also very likely that they would keep contacting Ajax and generally be a nuisance, trying to damage my relationship with the company. I was taken aback. I would win these battles, but each one would require a fight, costing me both time and money. When Dave came over that night, I was feeling both depressed and angry. I had tried to do the right thing, but the stench of my failed relationship seemed to follow me everywhere. Dave listened as I vented my frustrations, and to my surprise, he didn't respond with any sarcastic comments. I remained mired in my legal troubles for another week until my lawyer called to inform me that everything had been dropped. I was both surprised and overjoyed. Dave and I went out to celebrate. With the legal issues behind me, I was finally able to focus on my work and start moving on from Candace. Honestly, her behavior over the past month had made it somewhat easier, but I still had lingering feelings for her. A week later, those feelings were put to the test again. When I first received the message, I was hesitant to respond. Of all the Whitmores, Rachel was the only one I was reluctant to meet face to face. Out of respect, I called her back and arranged a time to meet. Since she was flying in and out the same day, I took the afternoon off and picked her up at the airport. We decided to have a quick lunch before heading back to the condo for our discussion. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted from polite and casual to much more serious. After we were seated with glasses of wine, she cleared her throat. "Thank you, Brandon," she said softly with a sad smile. "I appreciate you making part of this day trip enjoyable." "I've always enjoyed spending time with you, Rachel. I'm sorry we probably won't be able to do this much in the future." "Yes," she sighed sadly. "I think you're right. Shall we address the uncomfortable issue at the heart of my visit?" I nodded, feeling a pang of regret as I looked at her. She was very attractive, and I couldn't help but think that she resembled what Candace might look like in 25 years, still beautiful, no doubt. "I wanted to let you know that we've dropped all legal actions against you. I can't speak for the whole family officially, but personally, I'm truly sorry for what you've been put through." "Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot. I'm disappointed that the rest of the family doesn't share your sentiment." "Well, after you left that day, things went awry when Candace and Meredith returned from the beach. When they learned you'd been to the beach and left upset, they became very worried. Your call with Candace set off a chain reaction. Candace was a wreck, and Meredith was swearing like a sailor. I know Conrad hadn't told anyone, but he was planning to announce his political run that night. The chaos of that afternoon forced him to postpone his announcement. I'm sorry things didn't go as he hoped. I can honestly empathize with him." "Yes," she said softly. "I'm sure you do. I don't quite understand why I was attacked, though. I didn't bring this trouble to your family, Rachel. I'm ashamed to admit it was largely due to Conrad and Candace's relationship. Conrad has always been overly protective of her. When she told her father about the video, he went ballistic, seeing it as a personal attack on her and the family. He felt as if you had deliberately tried to tarnish us. But after his call to you, he reverted to the cold, professional Conrad I've seen many times before. Then, after that meeting 2 weekends ago..." She gazed at me as if expecting some kind of reaction. Unfortunately, all she saw was my confusion, which matched what I was feeling. "You don't know about the meeting?" "No," I replied, shaking my head. "What meeting are you referring to?" She looked at me for a moment before searching my eyes. "Brandon, do you still have that video you recorded?" "No, I left a copy with my lawyer and then deleted the original." "And you didn't make any other copies?" "No, of course not." "So, you didn't send your representative to meet with Conrad and the others a week and a half ago?" she asked, struggling to hold back a smile. "No," I exclaimed. "I never instructed my lawyer to meet with your family." "I'm pretty sure he wasn't your lawyer. I think his last name was Nashua or something like that." "Nasser?" "Yes, that's right. Candace didn't say much, but she seemed to recognize him." "So, you didn't send him?" "No," I groaned, dreading what might have happened. "He's my best friend." Rachel tried to suppress a laugh. "I told them you hadn't sent him, but no one believed me. Well, no one except Brad." "Well, thank you. I'm a bit surprised, Brad." "Don't be," she said, with a hint of disgust. "He said he didn't think you were that smart." "I'm sorry." "Figures," I smirked. "Regardless of the intent, your friend made quite an impression. Conrad said he'd make a very good lawyer, an ambulance chaser, but still a lawyer. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought. He apparently showed them a copy of your video, and it had a significant impact. Instead of blaming you, my family was forced to reflect on their own actions. It's been really tense at home ever since. I'm sorry, Rachel. I should have anticipated that he'd keep a copy for himself after I showed it to him. I assure you, I didn't give him one. It's all right, Brandon. I never actually saw the video, but I've unfortunately heard some things about it. I watched as she prepared herself. Is it true? She asked softly. Did you really catch Candace and Meredith having intimacy with each other? I'm afraid so, I replied gently. And is that what's on the video? I nodded. She lowered her head and tried to hold back a sob. Instinctively, I stood up and sat beside her, placing my arm around her. She leaned into me, resting her face and hands on my chest as I held her. For a brief moment, I found myself holding Candace again, comforting the woman I once loved. Without thinking, I whispered that everything would be all right as I gently began to stroke her back. For a few seconds, I softly ran my fingernails over her shoulder blades and along the upper part of her spine before I heard a muffled laugh. I pulled back and saw tears in Rachel's eyes, but she also had a knowing smile. I figured that's where she got that from, she chuckled. I bet you're great at giving back rubs, too. I felt my face flush. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just something I used to do when Candace couldn't sleep at night. Please don't apologize. The reason I brought it up is because that's exactly what she's been asking me to do for her almost every night since you left. I looked down, trying to gather my thoughts. You know, she's really tearing herself apart over what she did to you, and to herself. She knows you're a great guy, and would have been a wonderful husband and father, but I'm not sure she truly understands just how special you are. I'm not sure what she'll do if she ever realizes that. As her mother, I hope she never does, because that kind of loss might really damage her psyche. Brandon, I'm so sorry for the way my daughter treated you. I'm sorry my entire family treated you so poorly. Did you know Candace is planning to move back to Florida permanently? I shook my head. Well, she plans to sign the condo over to you. She doesn't have much invested in it. Of course, you'll need to take over the payments. All right, I said cautiously. Rachel noticed my hesitation. She's trying, Brandon. She's trying to show how sorry she is for messing things up. But not enough to admit what she's actually done, right? No, I understand how frustrating that must be, but Brandon, there are other factors to consider. From what I understand, even though the video suggests there might have been other incidents, there was still reasonable doubt. I started to respond, but she cut me off. Brandon, like I said, I never saw the video, but I know that reasonable doubt is the only thing keeping Brad from divorcing Meredith. If either of them admitted to more than a single mistake, it could cost her brother his marriage. And there's something else Candace has to consider. Would her confession even make a difference? What? Are you saying the truth doesn't matter? She shook her head. No, but I want you to answer something honestly. Even if she admitted to everything you suspect and was genuinely sorry, would you consider taking her back? Please answer honestly, Brandon. I knew the answer. I had thought about it briefly during the flight back from Florida. No, I admitted. I don't think I could even then. I know, she said with a sad smile, nodding in understanding. Candace knows it too, though I doubt she'll admit it. She knows she loves you and that she messed up, but she hasn't accepted that what she wants doesn't matter anymore, since you've given up on the relationship. I'm sure she's still trying to find a way to talk to you, to win you back. If there's one thing to say about my daughter, it's that she's persistent. I knew she was right. I just hadn't realized how stubborn Candace could be. After I dropped Rachel off at the airport, I called Dave. The tone of my greeting probably made him think I was furious. "You Ashley!" I yelled. "Yeah, I'm an Ashley," he replied, trying to calm me down. "So what makes me an Ashley this time?" "You idiot! I never told you to go and blackmail my ex-fiancée and her family." Whoa, hold on now. I didn't blackmail anyone. Are you telling me you didn't go to Florida and meet with the Whitmores? No, I did that. But what I'm telling you is that I didn't blackmail them. I was stunned. More importantly, I was silent. Dave took the opportunity to continue. "Look, Sven," he said with a wicked laugh, "all I did was show them the video and, well, I told them I was working hard to secure the other copies I knew were out there. I mentioned that I knew of at least 2, but there were probably more. I said it wouldn't stay a secret forever, but I could hopefully give them a year before they'd have to explain it. I figured that would give them plenty of time to spin things however they needed to for damage control." "And what did you want in return, Dave?" I asked, trying to gather my thoughts. Funny, that's exactly what the father asked too. Coincidence? I think not. I told them I'd do it for free as a favor to you, but I did mention that I'd appreciate a show of good faith, like seeing those bogus lawsuits disappear, and presto, look what happened. I could hear the smile in his voice. He was so pleased with himself that it was hard for me to stay angry. "Man, I never told you to do that. And you never would have. You've always been so fixated on Candace's mom that you'd never do anything to hurt her. Let's be real, if she were 20 years younger and single, you'd have gone for her instead of Candace. I always saw a lot of her in Candace. I just wish Candace had taken after her mother more than her father." There was a moment of silence. "What about the video?" I asked. "The one you took from my phone?" "Yeah, about that," Dave sighed. "Look, Sven, I'm sorry, but, man, those 2 are insanely hot, and that was wild. How many copies are there? Just the one your lawyer has and my personal copy. I'd tell you to delete it, but you'd probably just lie and say you already did." "Yeah, you're probably right," he chuckled. "Look, think of it as compensation for my airfare and time. It's not going anywhere other than my private collection. Unless, of course, we decide to leak it after a year or so." "No," I said calmly. "Just make sure it never sees the light of day." "And Dave?" "Yeah. Dude? Thanks. I thought my time in hell had ended when I went home for Thanksgiving. But I was wrong. When I arrived at my parents' farm in Indiana, I sensed something was off. I had been looking forward to spending the holidays with my 3 older brothers and their families, but I quickly noticed the tension between my parents. On Thanksgiving Day, Candace showed up for dinner. She was invited, of course, by my mother. They called it an early Christmas gift for me. I asked them what the return policy was on their present. In hindsight, part of the blame was on me. I hadn't told my parents the harsh details of our breakup. All they knew was that Candace had cheated on me and that the wedding was off. Foolishly, I had also let them know that we hadn't spoken in person or on the phone since that night she returned after Labor Day. I also made the mistake of telling my mother that I still loved her, even though it was over between us. I understood that they were doing what they thought was best for me, but I had made it very clear that I didn't want to see or talk to my ex-fiancée ever again. Her presence here felt like a betrayal of my trust in my parents. That was something I would need to address later. These thoughts were running through my mind when Candace arrived. She was warmly greeted by my parents and then said hello to me. Her eyes silently pleaded for me to welcome her. I turned my back on her and continued my conversation with one of my brothers. A few minutes later, my parents confronted me. "That was rude," my mother began. "We didn't raise you like that, son," my father added. "This is our home." "Yes, it is," I interrupted. "And if you'd like me to leave?" Just say the word." They said nothing, so I walked away. Thanksgiving dinner was quite eventful. I pretty much acted like Candace wasn't there, ignoring any attempts she made to engage me in conversation. I think my parents finally grasped how tense the situation was, but my oldest brother didn't seem to get it. He decided to call me out during the meal after I'd ignored Candace for about the 10th time. "Bro," he said, "that's just rude." Yeah, it sounded familiar to me too. I probably should have just smiled and kept quiet, but I was more than a little irritated that my family Thanksgiving had been disrupted. "No," I shot back. "What's rude is inviting my ex-fiancée to a family gathering without giving me a heads up. Maybe next time we should bring along some ex-girlfriends or even an ex-wife for the holiday." I saw my oldest brother close his eyes and lower his head, while his wife looked ready to hit someone. My other two brothers suddenly found their plates incredibly fascinating. Candace got up, excused herself, and went into the kitchen. My parents glared at me, and I glared right back. I seriously considered leaving, but I'd already done that back in Coconut Grove. There I was trying to respect her family, but this was my family. I excused myself and followed Candace into the kitchen. When I got there, she was wiping her eyes, clearly crying. Surprisingly, I didn't feel as bad as I thought I would. "What are you doing here, Candace? Your parents invited me." "You shouldn't have accepted." "Well, it's better here than with my family. Even with your cold reception, it's still better than the atmosphere at the Whitmore house this holiday." "And whose fault is that?" I snapped. "Oh, trust me," she said sadly. "Both Meredith and I are paying the price for that day." Still, only admitting to things that can be proven, huh? And you wonder why I don't trust you? I'm sorry, Brandon. I know it seems that way, but with everything going on in my family right now, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Well, counselor, if you were guessing hypothetically, how many times would you say my ex-fiancée cheated on me? Just that one time, and that's not hypothetical. You have to believe that. You've got to be kidding. I don't believe anything you say. She lowered her head and fought back a sob. I get it, she said gently, but it's the truth. And it's true that I love you. Funny way of showing it, I replied sarcastically. I know. If I were in your shoes, I'd have a hard time believing it too. How many times, Candace? I asked flatly, hypothetically. 4, 3 times before we became exclusive. Was she the only one? Number there were others in college and one in law school, along with the men I dated. I didn't know you were bi. You should have told me. I was afraid. I didn't want to scare you away. When I met you, I knew you were the one I wanted to spend my life with, and I was worried you wouldn't take it well. Honestly, being bi wouldn't have bothered me as long as it was in the past, like your old boyfriends. But the fact that you were helping your sister-in-law cheat on your brother, yeah, that's a different story. She stood there silently, tears in her red eyes, still beautiful. I fought the urge to go to her, to hold her. I mean, damn, Candace. He's your brother. I know he's difficult, but even he doesn't deserve that. I know, she sobbed. I can't believe he's clinging to their marriage with reasonable doubt. Brad doesn't seem like the forgiving type. Right now, their marriage is hanging by a thread, but I doubt it will survive. And why's that? Are you and Meredith planning to move in together? She flinched, and more tears welled up. No, I was with Meredith only those few times. It was just an attraction, nothing more. Even if Brad and Meredith divorce, Meredith and I will never be a couple. She paused, waiting for me to respond. I stayed silent. No, she continued. I suspect if my brother isn't already having his own affair, he soon will. Once it comes out, they'll either tear each other apart or decide on an open marriage. Honestly, I have no idea which way it'll go. Well, I suppose all's well that ends well. Not even close, Candace scoffed. I know Dad is trying to keep everyone from tearing each other apart. I never had a great relationship with my brother. But now, it's toxic. I'm sure he'd enjoy hurting me any way he can right now. Can you blame him? No, she whispered. I betrayed him, and I betrayed you. Brad's far from a saint, but I have no excuse for what I did to him. I'm trying to find a way to make peace with him, but I doubt that will ever happen. We sat there, staring at each other in silence. There were many things left unsaid, but it seemed neither of us knew how to start. I'm trying to win back the heart of the man I love, she said softly, attempting to ease the uncomfortable tension. That's never going to happen, I replied coldly. It could if he gave me a chance. Really? I sneered. Tell me, how could you possibly start rebuilding trust in this relationship? You lied to me from the very beginning. Then, before we'd even been engaged for 4 months, you cheated on me. You even betrayed your own brother, so clearly, family means nothing to you. How could you possibly restore trust when there's nothing left to build on? My voice grew louder as the anger and pain began to spill out. Given time, I know I could earn your trust, she pleaded. And why would I give you that time? What's in it for me? Years of suspecting that my girlfriend is cheating on me every time I turn around. Let's be honest, I don't trust you now. Damn it, Candace. I can't trust you alone with any man or woman anymore. Worse still, I can't even trust you with your own family members. What's to stop you if you get curious about some cousin, uncle, or aunt? And what was your reason for cheating on me again? Oh, that's right. I was shouting now. It was because little Candace didn't get her way. So, what happens next time when you don't get your way? Are you just going to sleep with the mailman? For God's sake, Candace, are you 13 years old? Candace was quietly sobbing when my parents intervened. Brandon, that's enough, my father barked. No, it's not. Why is she here, Dad? Mom, what did she say to you that made you betray my trust and bring her here to ruin our family holiday? I watched as my mother flinched at my words, while my father gave me a sharp look. She said, my mother stuttered, she said she just needed a chance to apologize to you and express how much she loves you. Oh, Brandon, we can see how much you're hurting and how you still care for her. No! I cut her off. This is all about what she wants. She wants to apologize. She wants to corner me in front of my own family. She wants forgiveness. She wants us to get back together. But what about what I want? I'm almost 30 years old, and I can make my own decisions. And I chose to stay away from her, to cut off contact. But apparently, my parents had other plans. Of course, my ex-fiancé manipulated them into getting what she wanted. Yet again. Let's be honest, she's great at bending the truth to suit her needs. The real reason I ended the engagement— No, Brandon, please, Candace pleaded. The reason I ended the engagement was because I caught my fiancé sleeping with her sister-in-law. My mother gasped, and I saw the color drain from my father's face. So, basically, Mom and Dad, you invited an incestuous, cheating woman to Thanksgiving dinner so that she would try to manipulate your son to give her another chance to break his heart. Great, thanks a lot. Candace ran out of the kitchen, sobbing. She grabbed her purse and coat, slamming the door behind her. My parents followed me as I calmly began packing my things. My brothers and their families remained seated at the table, silently watching us. Brandon? My mother called out in a trembling voice. I think it's time for me to go too. This was a blast. Let's do it again real soon. Son, we're sorry, my father said, keeping his composure. Me too, I replied. Will we see you at Christmas? My mother asked, tears in her eyes. No, I'm sure I'll have a deadline to meet. Besides, it's too soon. I need some time, I'll call later. And with that, my Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving thankfully came to an end. So, what can I get you, Sven? A smooth, sultry voice called out from behind the bar. I turned to the bartender and smiled. She was attractive, probably in her 40s, though it was clear she'd once been a real knockout. Now, she had that tired look, like a Vegas showgirl who'd stayed in the game a bit too long. I glanced at her name tag. Well, Betty, what do you recommend? I teased. She flashed a smile that I bet had once broken 100 hearts. It's Becca, Romeo, she laughed. I looked at the name tag again and chuckled. My bad. I was trying not to stare at your chest. She snorted. Yeah, right. You've been eyeing me up and down for the past hour. I just grinned. Busted. Don't worry, she laughed. It's part of the job. Same with the cheesy lines. So, that's a no? I asked, pretending to be innocent. That would be a very bad idea, she chuckled. My girlfriend might not be too pleased. I winced as memories of Candace and Meredith rushed back. Becca's smile faded instantly. Trust me, she said coolly. It's not contagious. No, I replied sadly. It's not that, it's just... I sighed deeply. I just lost my fiancé to another woman. I'm sorry, Becca said gently. Sometimes it takes a while to understand who we are and what we want. Yeah, I nodded. I caught them together. Damn. She was cheating? I nodded, and she looked at me for a moment with a gaze full of pity. That's really awful. I'm sorry. Cheaters are trash, no matter who they're with. I chuckled. Tell me how you really feel, Becca. Well, since you asked, she replied with a grin. By the way, I said, extending my hand, I'm Brandon. She shook my hand, and I held it for a few moments. Rebecca, she introduced herself with a smile. And you can let go of my hand now. But this was the only way I could think of to touch such a beautiful woman without her calling hotel security. Oh my God, you're so full of it, she laughed as she started wiping down the bar. You're not in sales or advertising, are you? Marketing. Same thing. Becca noticed an empty glass and went to take care of it. She returned a few minutes later. Take it easy, Brandon. You'll get through this. I'm sorry about your girlfriend. Something similar happened to me years ago, and it was a really tough time. But you made it through. Yeah, it was a hard struggle, but eventually I got tired of living in the mess she made of my life. It took some time, but I moved on. Trust me, she said with a smile. You're a good-looking young guy. You're in decent shape. You have a good job and a sense of humor. You're going to be fine. But not attractive enough to take home? She let out a loud laugh. Hate to break it to you, stud, but I'd be more likely to take your friend home for the night. Thanks, Becca. You've really boosted my ego tonight, I replied with a touch of sarcasm. She chuckled. It's simple. You're dangerous, and he's not. Okay, I said, resting my chin on my hands with interest. You've got my full attention now. She smiled and glanced over her shoulder to check on her other customers. Satisfied, she turned back to me with a grin. Your friend, Dave? I nodded. Well, he's basically a heat-seeking missile looking for anything warm and wet on a female's body. I snorted and nodded, thinking, there's more truth to that than she probably knows. Damn it, if I brought him to my house so that my partner and I could have fun with a real man for the night, it wouldn't even be considered a conquest for him. He probably stopped counting it a long time ago. For him, the main thing now is the chase and intimacy. Just a little clarification to move on to the next round. My girlfriend and I could have fun with him unconditionally, because he would have left before the morning rays touched him. Like I said, he's safe. But you, she sighed, shaking her head, you are a completely different story. You're the kind of guy a girl can really fall in love with. Even if you hadn't forced either me or my partner to switch sides, you could have made the situation even more complicated than it is. Even if I don't want it, there may be certain conditions. So, like I said, dangerous. Why do I feel like I've just been rejected? I said softly with a slight smile. It was done gently, but still. Refused. Becca chuckled. Cheer up, little camper. There's definitely a woman out there who's just waiting for someone like you. And when you find her, make sure to hold on tight, because I bet she'll do the same. But don't rush things. Go out, have some fun, and she'll come along when the time is right. I had a feeling there was more to her story, but she didn't seem eager to share, so I let it slide. Bartender wisdom? I eventually asked. Absolutely, and don't forget to leave a nice tip when you're ready to move on with your life. She laughed as she turned to serve another customer. Yeah, I thought, it's time to move on, but where should I begin? I signed my bar tab to my room, adding a generous tip for a certain bartender. Grinning to myself, I left the hotel bar. I could hear the party before I even stepped out of the elevator. As I looked down the hallway, I noticed a few people gathered near the doors of the suites that had been transformed for the event. When I entered, the music hit me like a wave, and I tried to blend into the crowd. It worked for a few minutes until I heard Dave's voice cutting through the noise. "There he is!" he shouted. "There's the birthday boy!" I groaned, silently vowing to get back at Dave somehow. For the next 15 minutes, I politely accepted handshakes and pats on the back. I even got a few birthday kisses that slightly eased my annoyance with my best friend. Just when I thought I was done with all the well-wishers, the music suddenly stopped. "Sven!" I heard Dave call out again. "Hey, come over here." Feeling like I was walking to my doom, I trudged over to my best friend, who was clearly tipsy from too many drinks before I arrived. "Come on, buddy," he slurred slightly. "Take a seat. We've got some birthday surprises for you." The only thought in my mind was that Dave's end would be slow and excruciating. As I sat down, I heard giggling behind me, and suddenly, Melanie Schaefer jumped right in front of me, all 5 feet 3 inches and 230 pounds of her. Melanie's round, smiling face, framed by lush red curls, could be recognized at a glance. She came up to me and hugged me to her. The crowd burst into cheers and applause. Melanie giggled and kissed me hard. As she was leaving, I shot a warning glance at Dave, and he visibly flinched. But the seller, as always, did not give up. He grinned, nodded to someone, and the music resumed. This time, instead of a techno beat, a slow, smoky rhythm began to sound. I caught my breath when Sarah Jones stepped into the center circle. Sarah, the striking saleswoman who worked with Dave, immediately attracted attention. Initially, she was taller than most women, almost as tall as Candace, though not quite. She stood at my 6-foot height and usually loomed over me thanks to her standard 4-inch thigh-high boots. Her long, straight, jet-black hair cascaded over her elongated torso like a dramatic cape. Her oval, attractive face was typically highlighted by dark, blood-red lipstick and even darker eye makeup, giving her a gothic and surreal appearance. To complete her look, Sarah possessed some of the most intense, piercing brown eyes I had ever encountered. Like a panther, she moved gracefully across the floor as she began to dance. Her black blouse and pinster-ped pencil skirt hugged her athletic frame as she swayed and twirled to the music. On her right arm, she bore a black tree tattoo with symbols beneath it. In the branches was the face of a man. It was rumored that this man was her first lover, whom she had sacrificed and buried beneath an old oak tree on the eve of the summer solstice. But of course, that was merely a rumor. It was undeniable that she was a powerful presence, both in appearance and demeanor. Dave mentioned that her assertive personality and striking looks had, on more than one occasion, intimidated a customer into placing a larger order than they had initially intended. As she moved slowly with the rhythm of the music, it was clear she was as graceful as a panther. When her eyes met mine, I could almost feel her warm breath on my neck, teasing me before she made her move. She didn't take her eyes off me. I noticed her mischievous smile. She swayed sensually to the beat of the music, and I felt myself mesmerized by this mysterious, warrior-like figure. Just when I was about to go into a complete trance, my attention was attracted by the appearance of a second person. Her name was Debbie Smith. She was a customer service manager from customer support, and she was also Sarah's friend. In the office, they were known by the pseudonym Smith and Jones. Although both had the ability to charm any man, they were very different. Sarah had a dark, exotic charm, while Debbie seemed to radiate the warmth of sunlight. Sarah exuded an exciting sense of danger, while Debbie seemed to charm with her warmth and laughter. Even their voices seemed to vie for attention. Sarah's passionate, husky timbre rivaled Debbie's bright, high-pitched, girlish voice. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking of those who, when they first met Debbie, mistook her petite figure and young voice for innocence. Despite her angelic appearance, there were times when she looked more like a college student who was released during spring break, determined to have as much fun, sunshine, and revelry as possible. Debbie quickly changed into Sarah's outfit, much to the delight of the audience. She was dancing in her underwear. I was mesmerized watching her dance. Watching them dance highlighted their differences. Sarah suggested spending the night exploring the dark side of entertainment, while Debbie was in the mood for fun and play, a clear choice between night and day. So which one caught my attention? It was easy, although I haven't immediately admitted it since, well, I enjoyed the attention of both these beautiful women. While Sarah moved to the beat of the music, swaying like a snake, fascinated by the sounds of the flute, Debbie twirled, pranced, and enjoyed everyone's attention. Sarah often cast shrewd glances at her. They continued to dance around each other as if they were participating in a fencing match. It was a very cool sight. "So, everyone's attention," thundered Harold Bingham, our vice president of engineering. "The show is over." His low voice startled everyone, including Sarah, and brought her out of her daze. It also made Debbie take a step back, right into my lap. Instinctively, I reached out to grab her. I felt a strong warmth. It made it difficult for me to keep my composure. "I know these parties may seem a little wild," Mr. Bingham said, "but these live shows are too much, even for us." The crowd reacted with cries of disappointment. Someone shouted provocatively from behind, which caused everyone to laugh. "Well," Mr. Bingham replied calmly, "I'm sure your wife has complained about this many times, but for everyone else here tonight, the show is over." The audience laughed and applauded. "I want to thank Miss Smith and Miss Jones for this amazing performance, but could you both please put your clothes back on?" The hall exploded with laughter and mockery. That's when I realized that when Debbie fell into my lap, I instinctively grabbed what I could reach. I quickly let her go. Debbie got up laughing and went to get her clothes. When I got up, I was horrified to see a stain on my trousers. At first I was afraid it was my fault, but when I became convinced that it wasn't, I realized how glad Debbie must have been to leave her mark on me. Her trail? My ego has definitely received a significant boost. I spent the next few minutes trying to avoid people, hoping that no one would notice my situation. Unfortunately, I wasn't so lucky. Or maybe that's how it was. Said a quiet voice behind me. Was it my imagination? Or were you just glad to see me? I turned around and looked into those cold blue eyes. Debbie looked like she was about to burst out laughing. Her smile seemed to light up the whole room. I said, trying to pull myself together. I'm pretty sure it was you. Prove it! She giggled. I couldn't help but laugh with her. Listen, she cooed, wrapping her arm around me. Let's go up to your room and I'll show you the right way to wash this so that there are no stains left. I sighed. I was pretty sure she was married, and I had a strict rule not to mess with married women. After what Candace did to me, this rule became even more ingrained. I looked at her smiling face, thinking about how I would spend the night with her. My curiosity grew with every thought, and I began to revise my strict rules. Debbie, I finally whispered, I thought you were married. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't mess with married women. No matter how tempted, I am. At that moment, I doubted my own sanity. She smiled, pulled my face closer, and kissed me on the cheek. Then her expression changed, and a smirk appeared on her face. Well, my marital status is uncertain right now. I recently discovered that my so-called husband is cheating on me. I'm not sure if I should kick him out, stay with him until I find a replacement, or try to save the marriage. What I do know for sure, she purred, and her grin turned into a mischievous grin, is that the rules have definitely changed. She looked into my eyes, waiting for my answer. So, do you have any ideas on how to deal with this stain? I asked, smiling warmly. A wide smile appeared on her face. I guarantee it, she laughed. Just let me get some things. She only left for a couple of minutes and then came back with a small bag. She put her arm around my shoulders and looked up at me with a flirtatious twinkle in her eyes. Lead the way, pretty girl, she cooed. I almost stumbled as I hurried us to the elevators. When we entered the hotel room, Debbie put her bag on the table and then led me to one of the chairs. When she met my gaze, she growled and told me to get ready. I didn't hesitate. Should I say that this was the best night of my life? It was the best night of my life. We lay in each other's arms. I was trying to catch my breath, while Debbie was trying to catch her breath. When she relaxed, I heard her sigh. Debbie, I whispered. Shh, she replied softly. Get some rest. I held her close, gently stroking her back as she curled up like a kitten. I ran my hand through her hair. Taking her hand, I pulled her closer. Soon, we both fell asleep. After a few minutes, I felt her move and opened my eyes. I found myself looking into deep blue eyes full of satisfaction and desire. She gave me a sweet smile and spoke softly. Do you like your birthday present? I grinned and rolled my eyes. The best birthday present, except for... I could barely contain a smile when I noticed the surprise and concern on her face. Except for the fact, I continued, that I'm lying here in the biggest wet place in the world. I thought that the two of us must have released a gallon of liquid. The entire lower part of the bed must have been soaked through. Asshole, she snorted, then looked me straight in the eye. That's enough, piglet, that's enough. She giggled and gave me a kiss. I knew from her kiss that our night together had come to an end. When she moved away from me, I felt the chill of her absence. She sat on the edge of the bed for a moment before jumping up. Damn it, she laughed. We really made a mess, didn't we? She packed her things and went to the bathroom. A few minutes later, she came out. Although she didn't look as fresh as she had at the beginning of the evening, her smile made her look just as beautiful. Stay, I said softly. She looked at me intently. I can't, man, she replied with a sad smile. She paused, then her smile cleared. At least not this time. As she opened the door to leave, she glanced back at me one last time. Thanks, Brandon, she said in her sweet, childlike voice. That was fun. And then she was gone. Lying there, I stared at the ceiling, trying to collect my thoughts. As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered if Debbie would ever understand how much her birthday present meant to me. At dawn, I was jolted awake by the annoying buzz of my cell phone. I glanced at the caller ID and saw it was Dave. I attempted to answer the phone coherently, but all that came out was a garbled grunt. "Sven?" I heard him call out. "You awake?" "No, idiot," I mumbled. "I'm still asleep, and you're just a bad dream." "Well, how about if I could turn it into a good dream? A very good one." He chuckled. "Okay," I said, struggling to fully wake up. "I'll meet you downstairs for breakfast, and you can tell me about this brilliant idea you've got." "Actually," he said, laughing, "I can't do that right now. It seems I'm a bit tied up." "Did I say you could tell him that?" I heard Sarah's sultry voice in the background. Then there was a sharp snap and Dave let out a yelp. "Thank you, Sister Sarah," he chuckled. "Can I have another one?" "Damn it, Dave," I laughed. "It's too early for an obscene phone call." "Dude, you need to come up here. I think I'm in love, and Sven." "It's never too early for obscene calls." "Here," I heard Sarah's voice in the background again. "Give me your phone." "Sven?" she purred. "I want to try what my girlfriend stole from me last night. So come here, and let's see if you can find a way to satisfy me." I muttered, trying to shake off my stupor. I can't speak English." I quickly hung up and turned off the phone. I rolled over onto my back and laughed. There were several reasons why I didn't go to Dave's hotel room. First of all, I had just overcome my depression related to Candace and was not ready for such an experience. Besides, I was sure I wasn't ready to dive into Dave's world. And finally, no matter how attractive Sarah is, the thought of seeing Dave. She would have sent me straight to a therapist for years to come. I smiled to myself. I was still young, I had a good job, and I looked decent. It's not a bad match, and someday I'll prove it to the right woman. But for now, I could have waited. It was a new day, and I was finally ready to move on. So, where did I leave my trousers?